truth, justice, and gooning? Those are the three words that came to mind when I saw Kamen America for the first time on Twitter. Likely artwork shared or by or even drawn by a fan, or it could have been official, I have no idea. Regardless, my impression of the comic, which I'm going to be reviewing today, my impression of this comic series was that it was just another gooner comic. You know what I mean? It's like a bunch of anime fans getting together, gooning, making some comic stuff, gooning, writing some more, gooning. And I just thought it was going to be that. Another, great artwork of hot babes and skimpy hero outfits with no real substance to it other than gooning. No themes or story to be found. The only thing that made me keep this in mind was Capybara. That was basically the only thing. Wow, it became suddenly really bright. That's crazy. But it was really the only thing that made me keep this thing in mind. Because there's capybaras drawn with this character all over the place. I see it on Instagram. I see it on Twitter. Everywhere. And what made me even consider getting this comic, which is the first volume here. Yes, that cover art is exactly what you'd expect it to be. What even made me aware of this comic again was how I find out about a lot of things nowadays, and that's drama on Twitter. Now, I'm not here to talk about the drama necessarily, but Vonster, the guy who Von Klaus, who made the Terror in the Trenches comic, which is excellent, by the way, you should get it. And I'm excited for the sequel. The artwork looks great. Anyway, he got into some spat with Douglas Ernst, and I'm like, okay, who is Douglas Ernst? I know I've heard this name before. I've seen that profile picture before. Who is this guy? What is his credentials to be arguing in the first place? All right, so he created the Soul Finder series via Iconic Comics, and I was like, okay, Iconic Comics. Let me click this link. I go to the homepage store, and what do I see front and center? Kamen America, and I'm like, oh, that's what this thing is. That's the blonde girl in the USA colored outfit fighting monsters or whatever is from. That's where I've seen this thing with the capybara, right? So I do a little bit of more digging, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe this will be something I check out. So I check out the page. I see the comic is only I think it was only like $12 or something like that. And I see another post from Draw and Talk, basically saying the response to whatever kind of controversy that Kamen America has gotten into, which I don't even know what the controversy is, to be honest. I can't be bothered to follow every bit of Twitter drama that happens in the indie comic scene. It's insane. But basically, he made this post talking about it and everything like that, and I said, okay, how's the story of this comic? Is it just sexy anime girls or what? And he replied, they're definitely cute anime girls. It's a very solid standard story. It's fun. I say read the first volume and check it out. If you like it, it gets better. If not, go check out the other series, Black Hops. So I was like, you know what? It's not that expensive compared to other comics I've bought, like Terror in the Trenches and ISOM, especially ISOM 1, 2, and 3. For some reason, well, I know why those first two were expensive, but the third one was also just as expensive, even though the rest of the comics have gotten cheaper, which kind of confused about that, but, whatever. So I figured out, you know what, I'd check it out. And lo and behold, this is a very successful series, because the more I dug into it, the more I found. They have a webtoon series that's free to read. They got a freaking animated trailer for the manga. There's a manga adaptation. Seriously, it is black and white. It is read right to left, just like a comic series. And look at the freaking trailer, man. Look at the animation put into this. This stuff is actually freaking good. Again, gooner, because the boobs are flashed on the screen, but I mean, the actual quality that seems to be putting into this, and the actual name brand of Kamen America has actually grown pretty good, to the point of having a Street Fighters crossover. I don't even know. I don't even know what levels of success you have to get to have an official Street Fighters collab, but that's pretty freaking good, man. I mean, that's pretty great. I think that is I think that shows you the level of success Iconic Comics has had with this series. Now, Iconic has done several other things. Douglas Ernst's book does not interest me in the slightest just by looking at it. I read the synopsis. It doesn't seem that interesting. It is a novel. It's not a comic. But, even if it was a comic, I don't think I'd be too interested in it. Orc City has been destroyed. I was told to say that meme because it'd be funny. But anyway, so I decided to check this out. And the more I looked at the artwork, I was like, you know what? The artwork actually looks changed. Thank you. The artwork actually looks pretty good. In fact, it looks a little similar to how I draw. The characters have a lot more thick outlines on the outside, and thinner outlines on the inside, which is similar to what I do. This is a little less extreme, but some pages do have more thick outlines like I do. Like this is an example of like a little bit more conservative with the outline. But they do have some thick outlines on some of the pages that I looked through that I read. I read this thing front to back. It's not that long of a comic. It's very thin, as you can see, compared to some other stuff I've read. Like freaking ISOM 3 was over 100 pages. But this, to me, told a more complete story in the few pages it has, which I'm not even sure how much pages does it say on the page here. I'm not sure if it does. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it says how many pages is in it. But the point is that it's much smaller than ISOM. And I feel like it tells a much more completed story than ISOM 1, 2, and 3 have done. And I'm not here to throw shade. But, because, again, Eric July is a beginning writer. I can cut him some slack. But it's like, it's not as complete as this story is in much less time, and that also means that there's not as much stuff to it, right? It's very like quick throughout it. It's not a very complicated comic. It has one theme and it does that one theme throughout it, and doesn't really have too much else to say. But surprisingly, the writing is pretty good. Now, as a design, Kamen America as a character never really interested me. My camera is frozen. What the heck? That's annoying. Please come back to me, camera. Please. Okay, there we go. The character design of her hasn't really been that appealing. I'm typically not really drawn to the American superhero type of characters other than Captain America, because I feel like everything afterwards has kind of failed to meet what Captain America really idealizes, right? And I think part of that is just because I know a lot of it is going to be very, very forced from one perspective, from one side of how people see America and stuff like that. And I'm really just not interested in that kind of story. But because I was given good recommendations, I was like, you know what, I'll check it out. So here we are. I've got it. I read it, and it's actually pretty good. The writing is not that bad, actually. It's a pretty funny comic. It's very comedic, very just a lot of unseriousness, but there is pretty good moments of sincerity. The very first scene, immediately opens up with the theme where she's playing baseball and she's not very good at it. She gets hit by a baseball again, apparently. And she's talking about she feels like she has to play baseball because her teacher says that girls can do whatever boys can do and that she should do it. And then her dad's like, well, look, you don't like baseball, you like making clothes. So if you like making clothes, you should make clothes. And what the main theme of the comic is, and what a lot of things have tried to do, is say that girls should be girl bossing and girls should do whatever they want to do. But they fail to realize, a lot of stories like that fail to realize that a lot of girls don't want to do the things that they're trying to push girls to do. And a lot of that is okay, well, girls can play football too, or girls can be car salesmen or car mechanics or military people. They can do all this stuff. And yes, absolutely they can. No one is saying that girls cannot do this. Well, there are a few people that say it. But the vast majority of people nowadays are not saying this. What is important to stress and that a lot of these stories, like these hyper feminist stories, try to say, is that girls should do these things that boys can do to show that not only can we do the things that you can do, but we do it better than men. And that's not the message to spread. The message to spread is actually what this comic does pretty well right off the bat, and just basically just says, if you enjoy making clothes, you should make clothes. You shouldn't be doing things that a teacher is telling you to do because feminism. You should do what you enjoy doing. And for a lot of girls, a lot of that is clothing. You know, if not making it, then being interested in fashion in general. A lot of women like going to freaking boba tea shops. Women like boba tea more than men. It's statistics. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with trends and genders, right? Men, we love football, right? I don't really like football, but men really love football a lot more than women. Now, women love football too, and it's totally fine. And I think along the way, a lot of the stories trying to focus on like the women can do everything men can do aspect. Forget the fact that women sometimes just don't want to do the things that men do. You know, women don't want to, a lot of women don't want to get sweaty in the mechanic shop, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to, go ahead. In fact, I draw a character named Ember who is a mechanic, and she is my community's favorite OC. If I ever retired her and sold her design off, there would be riots. I would lose all of my followers because she's the favorite character. She's a tomboy archetype, and tomboys, you know, characters are beloved by different people on the internet, right? My point is that this immediately right off the bat gets the theme pretty well said by her dad, just talking to Carly, the main character. And it's fine. It's fine. You know, it's a theme. It's spoken. It's not exactly subtle, but it gets it down right. And I think the message is really good. But it has more than just that. It's also themes of not just the girls should do whatever they want, just like guys can. It's also like the themes of corporate agendas. Like there's her media handlers after she gets her powers. There's like a meteor or satellite crashing that's full of radiation from Venus supposedly, and it gave her the ability to store electricity. And then there's a couple other characters that seem to be introduced later on, but one of them can control fire or explode or something like that. And monsters start popping up from that point. Anyway, Carly wakes up with superpowers in Area 51, and Area 51 just says, you know what, you can leave, or you can work for the American military. It's up to you, but you can totally run free. And that, to me, is totally unrealistic. That doesn't make any sense at all. Immediately when I saw that, I was like, okay, this story is not going to make a lot of logical sense. And from then on, I kind of understood that the story I was reading was more comedic than it was trying to be a well-told narrative with a lot of logical plot elements. It became more so obvious that this is a comedy with occasional action scenes, similar to something that I would say Teen Titans Go is, right? Teen Titans Go has action, it has fight scenes and chase scenes and stuff like that, but it's primarily the comedic banter between characters and the dialogue and some of the visuals, right? And this delivers on that. I didn't necessarily know that's what kind of story this was, but when I realized that's what it was going to be when the Area 51 thing happened, I was like, okay, I can just sit back and enjoy this. And I did enjoy it for what it is. Is it my kind of comic that I would subscribe to, like, and buy every single volume? There's 18 volumes of this, by the way. This has been going for a little while. Is it that kind of story that I would follow every volume of? No. My kind of story to like follow every comic of would be something more of the lines of Alpha Core from Chuck Dixon, or Terror in the Trenches from Von Klaus, Rise Again comics. But it's to me it's a fun time. But would I continue to pay for this fun time? Like, with my limited amount of money that I can spend on comics to review? No, I don't think I'll buy any more issues of this. But that's me personally. If you like anime influenced stuff, if you like comedy action stories, whether it be comics or animation. If you like anime girls with big boobs and ass, you will enjoy this story. And I'm not saying I didn't enjoy this story. I did. I had a good time with it. But going back to the themes of corporate agendas, she's got like a media manager as she gets her powers, and it basically is them pushing an agenda onto her and using her to push the agenda onto other people. Now, the agenda is not hand-fisted, like, okay, this is the woke mind virus. Oh my gosh. It's not like that, right? It's basically just saying like, chickens are popular, so your name's going to be Warhen. And you're gonna have sponsors on, and you're gonna have like logos on your outfit and stuff like that. We're gonna invest in Warhen coin and stuff like that, right? And I think that's a good theme as well. It's similar to the first theme that I talked about of telling girls to do what boys do and prove that they can be better. Instead, you should just, as a woman or as a man, whatever, just do what you enjoy to do as long as you're not hurting anyone, right? And it's so interesting because like this is coming from the crowd of like Comicsgate, right? They're not necessarily affiliated with Comicsgate, I don't think. Iconic Comics, I don't think they are. I mean, they side with the Riververse, so they definitely have beef with Comicsgate, or Comicsgate rather has beef with them probably. But it's to me, this is the kind of like messaging that a lot of left-leaning media has. Like it's basically the exact same message, right? But it's handled, I think, a lot better and can be interpreted in a lot more subtle of a way. It's not just saying like, this is what you should do. This is what you should do. Be gay, and tell everyone you're gay. You know, it's not like that. This is being like a lot more like, you do you, fam. And a lot of people can read this comic and be like, okay, I'm a dude, but I really love fashion. So I'm gonna follow the teachings of this comic, and I'm gonna make like my own fashion brand. Like I'm gonna wear crop tops, or mini skirts or whatever. And a guy who thinks that can totally take that message away from this comic, the exact same way a little girl who's being told she has to play baseball can say, "No, I want to make clothes." That's the thing that I think is kind of separating this from a lot of other like right-leaning comic books that I purposefully have avoided because I know they're going to be like heavily right-winged in their messaging. I'm not into the forced messaging, no matter what side of the political aisle you lean on. And it's why I haven't gotten Cyberfrog, because there was a Trump cover of a Cyberfrog comic. I'm not into your comic if you're going to push some kind of agenda politically or socially, whatever. Just tell me a good story. And had Ben Skyver never done that, I probably would have bought Cyberfrog 1 by now and given it a review. But as it is, if I ever get it, it's going to be secondhand because I don't want to give him money because of that. I'm sorry. If you support Trump, I don't care. If you hate him, I don't care. It's more so about the actual like agendas and stuff that I just don't like. And I especially don't like it when it's obvious. Like this, obviously this comic has an agenda. It's to tell girls that they can do whatever they want. And it's you know, it's done in a way that's not like necessarily forceful, or annoying or preachy, right? I haven't felt like I was preached this theme to by people just being mouthpieces for it. I was shown it through like the themes and some of the dialogue, yes. And I'll get to that whenever I start making critiques, but yeah, like they name the company names her Warhen. It's a terrible name, but it makes them money. And whenever she leaves the company, she's nowhere near as popular. So I mean, it goes to show that unfortunately there are corporate trends, and you have to abide by them. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. I mean, I can even kind of relate with that. You know, Little Miss Steel. I can't say it's the most marketable comic. I can't say it's the most financially successful comic. I mean, I style my comic around 2000s nostalgia, and the people that are most likely to like enjoy the 2000 nostalgic elements are millennials and older Zoomers like me. Well, I guess I'm like right on the border. I'm like the oldest Zoomer known to man, but I've always been called a millennial, so I just call myself a millennial. But but you know, it's my demographic. But my demographic doesn't have money to be spending on comics. We're broke. We're all broke because we live in in the current day America, and everyone is broke and miserable. But the main thing that I realize when I'm making this comic is that I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for storytelling. And if I wanted to get money, I would make my comic a right-wing comic, because a lot of Republicans have money. A lot of Republicans have money. And obviously with stuff like the Trump variant of Cyberfrog, which made money for Van Sciver, I guarantee you it made him a couple of $1,000s at least. It's obviously successful. And if you pander into one political side, you're probably going to get money just by affiliating with that. But I don't do that. I prefer to just tell a story that's good. And I do. It's a good story. You should check it out. EV Comics. It is Little Miss Steele. I'm wearing this shirt backwards so I can be showing the EV Comics logo. But anyway, I wear this to events so I can advertise everywhere I go. Anyway, but yeah, like this thing though with the corporate agenda themes and all that kind of stuff is a reflection to me of why comic writers and artists like went away from Marvel and DC and started doing independent comics in the first place. I mean, it's the main reason why Comicsgate exists, is because they were unhappy with how the mainstream comics were handling their themes and their comics and their beloved characters that have existed for decades and are now being made into mouthpieces for certain agendas and stuff like that. That's the whole reason why Comicsgate was created in the first place, and why so many indie comics exist today, is because people just want to give people good stories to read, and not having like old characters be degraded for these new characters. Like, look at this new character, check this out, this is so cool, and the new characters suck. It reminds me why indie comics exist, and it's a good little self-reflection I got here from reading this book, which is a unique experience, I would say, from the other comics I've reviewed. But getting back into the plot, again, Area 51 being okay with her leaving is kind of weird. It doesn't really make sense to me at all. But it is a comedic tone, so I know they're not super concerned with logic. But at the end of the day, if you're telling a story, especially 18 issues down the line, your story is going to fall apart if the logic is not there. So I hope they don't break the logic too much going down the road. I probably will never find out, but maybe I'll check out the webtoon series since it is free. I might actually just do a full review of this. It ended in 2022, so it's probably not fully up to date with the lore today, but I mean, it's possible I might check that out and do some more reviews. But yeah, she defies her media team and sets out on her own. There's some background exposition delivered from a TV news channel while the characters are talking about other stuff, and I thought that was okay. That was a good way of setting up the finale to this. It started building tension where it was talking about how a character named Siggy, his parents are missionaries who are over in Topekistan, which I think is just a parody of Kekistan. I don't think Topekistan is a real country, but anyway, the missionary, his missionary parents are in there, and Russia and Topekistan currently have a ceasefire handshake agreement right now. But then the TV eventually reveals that Russia has broken that ceasefire, and there's a superpowered woman over there who is using explosive fire powers. And so seeing this on the TV, Carly, Kamen America, flies across the ocean because she can fly. She's got some level of super strength, I'm sure, and durability probably as well. Well, definitely as well after this fight. But she's got lightning powers, and while not the most unique set of powers, I think it is pretty good. It's better than just generic super strength. They explain her powers pretty explicitly throughout it. Not in over amounts of detail, but you figure out what she can and can't do fairly quickly throughout this. So if she came out with a new power, it would have to be like something that would make sense, right? It would have to be something that's earned, or something that could be explained logically for me to follow along. But as it is, those are her powers right now. And she can charge cell phones, apparently. so that's cool. Anyway, the final battle is pretty well drawn and well paced. There is like a close up of Kamen America, her butt, like in very extreme shading detail that most of the comic is not drawn in. So it was a little. I mean, you can tell where the effort went. The effort went into the action, but also the close-ups on the characters' butts. But and it's what did you expect looking at this comic? Like what did you expect looking at this cover, right? But it's a good battle though. It's well paced. It flowed pretty well, right? It had a pretty good flow to it. The action, I could follow it very well. There was one point when the battle ends where she grabs the enemy. When she grabs her necktie or something, and all of a sudden she's behind her. That I didn't understand. Like maybe she like zips around, but there's no movement lines or anything to suggest she just slips out from under her or anything. I thought that was a little clunky, a little weird. But besides that, I don't really have any complaints about the art. I thought the art was pretty good throughout it. It's weirdly cute. It's weirdly cute. I was expecting more of an anime style. But going back to where was this at? I think it was just here. Yeah. Looking at this art, I mean, the art style is pretty good. I like it. It's not anime, like it's not trying to be anime, like stuff like Devil May Cry and My Adventures with Superman is trying so hard to be and not being. This is trying to do its own thing, right? It's more like cartoony than it is anime. It sort of reminds me. Sort of a little bit of Invincible Fight Girl, this new cartoon that came out last year that is definitely anime inspired, but doesn't necessarily look like an anime. It looks like it's a cartoon that's just inspired by anime, and that's what I get from this. There are some background shots that look like it's from like cheap backgrounds from like an anime that you just see, and not to throw shade at it. I mean backgrounds. I mean this background looks fine. But there are a few of them that stuck out to me, especially on the first page. I looked at that and I was like, generic anime background style. Yes. Like I noticed it, right? And there's not too many examples of that I could give, so it's not a big issue worth hounding them for. Her friend is I skipped over something. The battle ends kind of weird, where instead of having Kamen America win or get defeated but gets bailed out by some other character or some other circumstance that causes the fight to end. Instead of that, she kind of just becomes friends with her, which which is not what I was expecting, but it's not necessarily bad. It's just a little anticlimactic to me because this character is kind of being set up as someone who is fiercely loyal to her country, her cause, and there's not really much hints that she isn't enjoying what she's doing. Like she has a smile throughout most of the fight, and that implies to me that she's not regretting what she's doing. But then all of a sudden she's like, I don't want to fight people. I don't want to hurt people. I want to use my powers for good. And then Carly's like, you can do your own thing. You can serve your country. You just don't have to do it through the military. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, I can be good Russian character instead of bad Russian, angry Russian noises in the background. That's literally what the soldiers say. The soldiers don't have a single line of dialogue. It's just angry Russian noises. And am I rolling my eyes at Russia being bad guys again? Yes, it's very common. It's extremely common, and I roll my eyes at it every time. But, at least this ended in a different way than just Russia is going to be the main antagonist for the rest of the series. It's a little bit different. I don't know. Maybe Russia is the main antagonist for the rest of the series. But as far as I know from this comic, it seems like that's not going to be the case. But yeah, I mean, it's just a little anticlimactic for me because I felt like the change was too abrupt. I felt like the change from I'm going to defeat you and either capture you to make you a hostage or I'm going to kill you. It goes from that to, okay, yes, I also like making clothes. Okay, it's I just want to be a good guy. I don't want to hurt people or cause destruction like this. I I just want to make clothes and use my powers for good. The change was too abrupt to me. I'm not against the idea of it, but I just thought the way it was handled was anticlimactic. But moving on to some other characters, her best friend Vicky, which was mentioned in the very first couple of pages, grows up to be a scientist and specifically like a geologist, and which is important because one of the first monsters that Kamen America destroys turns into like mud or clay. And that I think is interesting because it almost implies that the meteor or satellite, whatever, that hit the ground and gave Carly and a few other characters powers, it implies to me that the radiation might have sunk into the earth, and maybe like there was like a fossil of a dinosaur that got infected with the radiation, and then it came to life as a dinosaur pumpkin hybrid thing. And you know, again, logic is not a big factor in a story like this because it's comedic, but at some point, if I'm going to follow a story seriously, the logic has to be reined in a little bit. But that, I mean, that's just fun. That's just a pumpkin dinosaur. Sure, whatever. It's just a monster for her to punch. It's not narratively that important, other than I think it came from the Earth itself whenever the radiation hit. But yeah, Siggy, which is her probably love interest, male friend, who is running the shop that she's at, that she's hanging out in a lot of the comic. Siggy's just kind of there. He doesn't really do anything. He's just there to have his parents be the missionaries that are in danger in the finale. And, you know, I don't necessarily think that's bad. Again, this is only volume 1 of 18, so I'm sure maybe Siggy's character gets, fleshed out over multiple comics. Not every character needs to be like super important to the plot of that in the issue that they're introduced in. Another example: Hawkgirl in the Superman movie. She does not need to be. She does not need to have a lot of screen time or development for this film because she's obviously going to be used in more stuff. Now, if she's never developed significantly from this point on, then yeah, then it will be a problem. But in the first film, I'm not really looking for her to be a super important character. I'm more so kind of just enjoying her being unhinged and fun to watch in a fight. But yeah, same thing goes with Siggy here. I don't really need him to do anything significant as long as most of the characters matter, and most of the characters do matter. Carly, the media people, the antagonist, which I forgot her name, but she's got fire explosive powers, and Vicky. Like all the main and side characters get something to do, and even if Siggy gets a very small part of that, like he is involved. And yes, there is a capybara in this comic. Now something that is not subtle at all, and I gotta talk about it. And it's kind of weird for me to talk about, but this comic is very overtly a Christian comic, which I don't really think makes sense. So it's hard to talk about. So like Christianity is all throughout this thing. There's a crucifix, specifically Catholicism. There's a crucifix. The parents are missionaries, and there was something else too. There was another part in it that was pretty out there to me that immediately stuck to me. It's part of the dialogue that Carly says to the antagonist, the Russian girl with fire powers, and to me, it's not subtle at all. And if the themes of Christianity was subtle, then maybe I would be like, okay, you can have that in there. That's totally fine. But, it's one of those things that's like, it's one of those things where I look at Daredevil, right? Daredevil is unapologetically a Catholic superhero. And the themes of Catholicism, the themes of his faith are vital to his character. And I think that works because what he's doing, like going out every night and beating up criminals and stuff like that, to the point where they're breaking bones, they're losing a lot of blood, and he doesn't kill any of them, but it's very possible that he could at any minute. He might potentially snap and go off the deep end and do it. I think that's interesting because you're contrasting, the largely pacifism of Christianity, of Catholicism, and contrasting that with Daredevil's violent side, his anger, right? And I think it's righteous anger, but it's that one of those interesting things that makes Daredevil so fun to watch is that conflict within his character. And this doesn't really have that. The themes of Christianity aren't really a part of this character, at least not in this first volume, right? And it just kind of feels like it's sort of just shoehorned in. And it's not even like, oh yeah, one of Vicky was saying she has to go to church later or something, and I'm like, is every character in this story that's a good guy Christian? Because I kind of similar thing to God's Not Dead. God's Not Dead is maybe a good movie if you're a Christian and you only want to watch Christian movies, but it is a bad movie for non-Christians to watch, because every character that is not Christian in this movie is a jerk. And that is just not at all how reality is. There are plenty of good people, plenty of kind, nice people that make a positive difference in this world that do not believe in God. And me as a Christian, I also believe I'm not going to like go with the freaking God's Not Dead outlook on, everyone who's not Christian is miserable and bad, and they need to be saved. Otherwise, they're going to be miserable forever. That's not how it is. That's not how it is in reality. And this story is kind of, to me, it's subtle. Like maybe the not so subtle inclusions of all the good characters being Christian is sort of telling me that everyone who she's fighting must not be Christian, and everyone who does this must not have the Christian ideals of life. And to me, it sort of comes off that way. While, mind you, being a very obviously like gooner comic at some points, which I think is just a little conflicting. I think it's a little conflicting, okay? And you can look at my art, and especially the DeviantArt characters, and you can say, okay, well, you do the same thing. That's fair. That's fair. The difference is that I'm not trying to say, like, the Christian themes in my comic necessarily. Like, Little Miss Steele is not a Christian comic, even though I myself am a Christian and am the writer and artist of it. Like Demonico is a Christian comic. It is a Christian story through and through. It's done in a way that I tried to make it more approachable to the general audience. But if you're a Christian and you read Demonico, you will find tons of biblical references and themes. But if you're not, you can enjoy the story for what it is and interpret it as a Christian story or not. The themes are unavoidable in that. But again, that's an example like Daredevil, where the themes of Catholicism, perfectly line up with his conflict as a character. And the same thing with Demonico. While not nearly as well written, because it's my first ever work of fiction, has a similar way of going about it. So this comic to me is like it has Christian imagery and mentions by dialogue. But it doesn't do anything with it with the character, and it just feels like it's in there to be like, oh, I'm a Christian, so I must put Christian characters in my comic. And I'm like, you don't have to. You really don't, especially with a comic like this that's so obviously, partially gooner bait in the first place. Like, I really just don't think those two themes coexist, my brother in Christ. But anyway, the other thing I'm kind of iffy about, the epilogue reminded me about the Area 51 being way too chill with Carly, and it kind of just comes off as American military propaganda a little bit. Like, oh, the American military is super cool. We let radiated people out for free with no catch at all. And maybe that's not the case. Maybe they are spying on her, but this comic does nothing to suggest that. And I'm like, okay. So you mean to tell me that the Russian military sends the superpowered girl to attack Topekistan, and freaking the American military just says, no, no, you're free to go. And the character, the Russian girl, even said that she was forced to do this, to be in the military, to use her powers for the military and invade Topekistan. So it's like, really? You mean to tell me that America wouldn't try to enslave a superpower girl too? We absolutely would in a heartbeat. It's freaking the CIA. You think all the stuff the CIA has done? Okay, I'm not going to go on the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, but okay, look, okay, the American military would not just be throwing her out. And I know, again, the tone of this is comedic, but gosh dang, that's a plot hole that I cannot ignore. That is a plot hole that I cannot ignore. And it's something else that I like as well. They went with Topekistan instead of Kekistan. They did that instead of just using the actual country. Why didn't you use a stand-in for Russia too? And this is why I like in Superman 2025 that they use, no spoilers by the way, but they use two fictional countries, Boravia and whatever the heck the other one was called. They're not real, and because of that, you can have them be inspired by real countries, but they're not the real countries. So it allows you to have more creative freedom with your stuff. In Symbiotic, in my novel series, which eventually I'll release a third book, I promise. The country I use is not America. It's not Britain or anything like that. It's a made-up one. And I did that because I wouldn't have to be weighed down by the history of the real-world country that I'm using. It just allows me to be more free and creative with it. And I always prefer that instead of just making Russia the bad guy every single time. I'm looking at you, Stranger Things. I'm looking at you. But yeah, and the art, like I said, the art is very good. Thick outlines, I love it. It looks really good. I love the art style. The colors really pop. It is distinctive for some other comics I've seen. Some other comics I've reviewed. It is very different looking, very cartoony in its style, and I always prefer that than the more ultra realistic shading and stuff like that. I always prefer a comic that knows how it's knows how to set its visual style, and I think this comic did a good job of establishing that right off the bat. So good job on the art. I think the guy's name was Tim something. Timothy Lim did the art, character design, and the lettering, and it was written by Mark Pellegrini. Good job, both of you. I have some critiques here and there, but besides that, I think it looks pretty good. Again, the action flowed very well. The jokes are pretty good for the most part. I was laughing a couple times, especially the corporate stuff. I was like, wow, this is pretty good satirical look on how corporate. How companies try to push some kind of agenda onto the stars, and oftentimes we get mad at actors for doing things or whatever, influencers for saying certain topics, but a lot of times the influencers don't believe the stuff they're saying. They're just doing it for the money, and that's there's a quote at the beginning of this that was like, do you stand for what's good and beautiful, or do you sell out and take the money? To take the money is to say that beauty is optional. To take the beauty is to say that money is optional. It's very rare that you ever get to do both. And I related to that. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was a great way to open it up, and it does work with the themes of the comic. It's like I said, it's cohesive. The theming and the storytelling here is cohesive. But there's just some logic points that I just have some issues with. But besides that, I really enjoyed it. The comedy made the themes more, made them feel better instead of being preachy. It just felt more fun to me than anything. And like I said, I enjoyed my reading. Is it a comic that I'll continue to buy? Probably not. I would give it a 7 out of 10. For plot logic issues and a lack of subtlety in some of the themings that I've talked about, but for the most part, I would say this is an enjoyable experience. If a 7 out of 10 is a good ranking, then I'm good with that. A 10 out of 10 is perfect, greatest thing I've ever seen. I just gave Superman 9 out of 10. I feel comfortable giving this a 7 out of 10. I feel like this is a good time. I enjoyed it. But with that being said, I am hungry. I'm going to get me some food. Thanks so much for watching. Till next time, peace out.